Hey everyone, welcome back. It's January 15th, 2025. And we love to kind of dig into some of the big news stories here. We got a bunch today. We've got three. At first glance, they seem totally separate. But stick with us, and we'll show you how they all paint a picture of what's going on right now.
Yeah, it's really interesting how when you look at these different events together, you can see like the bigger picture trends and tensions that are happening.
Yeah. So let's jump right in.
Okay.
Let's start with the one that's been everywhere. Donald Trump's legal troubles. That special counsel Jack Smith just released his report about Trump trying to overturn the 2020 election.
Oh, yeah.
And it's
It's a big one, over 130 pages. It lays out all these things that Trump and his allies did to try to change the election results.
Yeah.
I think what's really striking is like how detailed it is. Accounts of him pressuring state officials, even, Pence the VP to step in and mess with the whole process.
And Trump's response. Well, you can probably guess. He's been pretty vocal. Called Smith a deranged, lame-brained prosecutor on social media.
Yeah.
But here's where it gets even more complicated. This whole election interference thing is just one of many legal headaches he's got.
Right. So besides that special counsel investigation, you've got the classified documents case, and then you've got all these financial fraud cases too. I mean, he already has to pay like $454 million in penalties for that civil fraud case in New York. And then there's another $88 million in damages from that E. Jean Carroll case.
Wow, those numbers are
huge.
And to think this is all happening as he gets ready to be inaugurated for his second term next week.
Yeah, it's kind of unheard of, right?
Yeah.
We've never seen a president, let alone one starting a second term, facing this many legal problems. I mean, it really raises questions about, accountability.
Yeah.
What are the limits of presidential power? And how can our legal system handle something this politically charged?
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so we've got like a potential constitutional crisis brewing in Washington. Let's switch gears completely and head way up north to Greenland. You remember back in 2025 when Trump was talking about, acquiring Greenland?
Oh, yeah. I remember that. His talk about annexing Greenland definitely raised some eyebrows. And it wasn't just talk about buying it. He even hinted at, maybe using force or economic pressure to get it.
Yeah. And his son, Don Jr., he went to Greenland recently.
Yeah.
And things took a turn. Let's just say that.
Yeah, there was this incident with Don Jr. and some homeless Greenlanders and a bunch of Maggie hats.
Okay, I'm listening. Lay it on me. What went down?
So he's touring Nuuk, the capital.
Okay.
Don Jr. apparently finds these homeless folks and gets them to wear these Maggie hats for a video he was making. Said he'd buy them a meal at this fancy restaurant if they did it.
So he basically used people who were struggling for like a political stunt.
That's what a lot of people are saying. It caused a huge backlash. People are accusing him of taking advantage of these folks just to score some political points.
Yeah, you can see how that would rub people the wrong way. But stepping back from this whole incident, what's Greenland thinking about all this?
That's the important part, right? The Prime Minister, Mutby Anabe, he's been very clear. They don't want to be part of the U.S. And they don't want to be part of Denmark either. They want independence.
Whoa, so they want to go their own way completely.
Okay.
That changes things. The implications of an independent Greenland, especially way up there in the Arctic, are massive.
Yeah, no doubt. It's messy. You've got centuries of history with Denmark, but they've been pushing for more control for a while. It all kind of culminated in this self-governance agreement back in 2009.
So you have all these competing interests here. You've got Trump, Denmark, and then Greenland wanting freedom.
Yeah.
It's like a real-life political thriller playing out.
It really is. And it just shows how something that seems isolated, like Don Jr.'s little stunt, can have these huge ripple effects on the global stage.
Definitely. Okay, so we've got a potential constitutional crisis. We've got international power struggles. Now let's zoom back in on the U.S. There was this heated exchange in the House Oversight Committee.
Oh, yeah. This was between Nancy Mace, she's a Republican from South Carolina, and Jasmine Crockett, a Democrat from Texas.
I think I remember seeing something about this. Something to do with transgender rights.
Right.
And some kind of bill.
Yeah, they were debating this bill. People call it the Protection of Women and Girls in Sports Act. Basically, it would ban transgender women from competing in women's sports.
Okay, so that sets the scene. And I'm guessing things got a little, heated.
To put it lightly, Crockett was accusing Mace and the other Republicans of basically targeting transgender people for political points.
Uh-oh. And how did Mace respond to that?
Well, Crockett called Mace a child at one point, which, escalated things.
Okay.
Mace is 47 years old, so obviously she wasn't happy about that.
I bet.
Her response was, take it outside.
Wait, she actually said that? In Congress? That's wild.
Yeah.
especially given what they were arguing about.
It shows just how tense things are right now, both within the committee and in the whole political landscape.
That's crazy. It's interesting that Mace, someone who's been in politics for a while, would react so strongly to being called a child. Makes you think about how age and gender play into all of this, especially when you're talking about sensitive topics like LGBTQ plus rights.
Yeah, that's a good point. How do people see your age, your gender? How does that affect how you're heard, especially on these big issues?
And we can't ignore the fact that the 2024 elections are right around the corner. That's just adding fuel to the fire.
Yeah.
I bet we're going to see a lot more of these kinds of clashes as we get closer.
Oh, absolutely. The stakes are high, and these little incidents, they're just a preview of the bigger political battles that are coming.
It's wild, right? Looking at all these stories together, it really feels like, I don't know, a sense of unease.
Yeah.
Like the systems we rely on are being like stretched and tested in ways we've never seen. Yeah, it's like we're in some crazy political thriller movie or something.
Yeah.
Except it's real life,
Right.
and the stakes are incredibly high.
Absolutely. And the plot just keeps getting more and more unpredictable. And I think that feeling of uncertainty is just amplified even more by like how much information is out there.
Yeah.
It's easy to just get completely overwhelmed and lose sight of the big picture.
Yeah, that's so true. So how do we how do we navigate this as like informed citizens, as news junkies? How do we not get totally swept up in all the craziness and actually make sense of things?
Well, I think the first thing is to admit it's complicated.
Yeah.
We have to like move past these easy narratives.
Yeah.
Black and white thinking.
Yeah.
Embrace the nuance. The world's not that simple.
Yeah.
And these issues are rarely straightforward.
Totally. But what does that even mean to like embrace nuance?
Right.
How do you actually do that day to day when you're reading the news, trying to understand what's happening?
I think it starts with being critical of the information you're taking in. Where is it coming from? What are the sources? Are they biased? Is there another side to the story that you're not seeing?
So it's about being aware of your own biases and trying to see things from different perspectives, like stepping outside of that echo chamber.
Exactly. And it's not just about reading stuff, it's about talking to people, especially people who see things differently than you do. You have to really listen to what they're saying, even if you don't agree.
That's where it gets tough though, right? Like especially online. It's so easy to just get caught up in the moment and start attacking people instead of actually talking about the issues.
Totally. It takes work. It takes patience. You got to be willing to get uncomfortable. But if we want to bridge these divides that are tearing us apart, it's crucial.
Speaking of division, that whole thing in the House Oversight Committee, the clash between Mace and Crockett, that was really intense.
Yeah.
Like her saying, take it outside, that was just jarring. It felt like the perfect example of how toxic things have gotten.
Yeah, it really shows how our political conversations have become all about personal attacks and trying to score points, instead of actually having a real debate about what's best. It's about owning the libs, getting that viral moment for social media.
Right. And it's not just in politics.
No, it's everywhere.
It feels like this kind of behavior is everywhere.
In your family, at work, online, it's like we've defaulted to outrage and anger instead of even trying to find common ground.
Exactly. So how do we get out of this cycle? What can we as individuals actually do to create a more positive and productive dialogue?
I think it comes down to being the change you want to see. Watching your language, really listening, treating people with respect, even if you completely disagree with them.
Yeah, but that's so hard, especially when you feel like you're being attacked.
It is.
Oh, your values are being challenged.
But we got to remember, we're all in this together. We're all sharing this planet, this country. The decisions we make now, they affect everyone, including future generations.
That's true. Yeah. Okay, let's go back to Greenland for a minute. That whole fight for independence with these powerful countries all wanting control of their resources, it's a fascinating story. What can we do, being so far away, to support their right to self-determination?
It's about amplifying their voices, educating yourself about their history, their culture, what they want for the future, and then pushing for policies that actually help them and give them the right to make their own decisions.
So seeing them as more than just like a strategic asset, right? Not just a place with a bunch of resources, but as people with their own hopes and dreams and struggles.
Yeah.
And the right to decide their own fate.
Exactly. And realizing that their fight for independence is connected to our own fights. Our fights for justice, equality, and a future where everyone can thrive.
So we've talked about nuance, critical thinking, having those hard conversations. But what about actually doing something? What can we as individuals do to make a
That's a big.
difference? Yeah, that's the big question, right? Like, we can talk about all these problems, but what can we actually do to make things better?
That's where like personal action meets our responsibility to each other. We can't just sit back and consume information. We got to be part of shaping the world we want to live in.
Yeah, I love that. But it's so easy to feel helpless when you look at like these huge global problems.
Yeah.
Like, what can one person really do?
I think it's about remembering that even small actions, when millions of people are doing them, can have a big impact. Start by staying informed. Learn about the stuff you care about. Find that thing that lights you up and makes you want to make a difference.
Yeah, find your thing. Find what makes you excited to get out of bed and be like, I'm going to change the world today.
Right. And then once you've got that drive, put it into action. Volunteer. Donate to organizations that are doing good work. Even just having those tough conversations with your family and friends can make a difference.
Speaking of tough conversations, let's go back to Trump for a second. Having a president, a former president, dealing with all these legal battles while in office, it's insane. How do we as citizens make sure that justice is served no matter what our political beliefs are?
It comes down to holding our leaders accountable. Demand transparency. Don't let anyone undermine the rule of law. And remember, that goes for all leaders, not just the ones you agree with.
Yeah, no blind loyalty. We have to think critically, ask hard questions, make sure that decisions are based on facts and logic, not just partisan politics.
And our legal system, even though it's not perfect, it's so important for protecting us from tyranny and corruption. We have to defend it, even when it's hard or when it challenges our own beliefs.
Absolutely. Okay, one last time, let's head back to Greenland. Their fight for independence is so compelling. With all these powerful countries wanting their resources, what can we do from so far away to support them?
Help them get their message out, learn about their history, their culture, what they want for their future, support policies that put their needs first and let them decide their own path.
So it's about seeing them as more than just some strategic asset or a place with a bunch of resources. Seeing them as people with their own dreams, struggles, and the right to control their own destiny.
Exactly. And realizing that their fight for independence is connected to our own. Our fights for justice, equality, and a future that works for everyone.
Wow, this has been quite the deep dive. We've covered so much. Potential constitutional crises, international power struggles, the way we talk about politics. It's a lot.
It is a lot to think about, but the important thing to remember is that the future isn't something that just happens to us. We create it through the choices we make, the actions we take, and how committed we are to building a better world.
So to everyone listening, keep asking questions, keep learning, keep pushing for positive change. Your voice matters. The world needs you now more than ever.
And until next time, stay curious, stay engaged.
That's it for this episode of the Videntis podcast. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.